welcome to Take a Break with Karen. Thanks for coming back, and I sincerely hope you will continue to watch. Our interview right now is with a great member of our community, Krist Novoselic. We welcome you.
Hi, Karen.
He has been very, very instrumental in keeping the Grange going in Grays River, which is, I'm thrilled about that, because the Grange could easily fall away, but especially with the COVID problem that's with us, with all of us. So I know you kind of have things you'd like to talk about today.
Well, thanks for having me here at the wonderful Appelo Archives. And indeed, I've been a Grange member since 2004. And I'm the president of the current president of the Grange. And it was interesting how you brought up the whole COVID pandemic situation. Well, it was in late 2019, I brought up the idea that we should have some kind of social media presence. And we were talking about it, and some people were on like a dominant social media platform. Some people were really against going on there and didn't want to be drug on there. And so I did some research, and I found this platform called HumHub out of Germany. And it's a private social media platform. It looks a lot like the big FB, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh.
Facebook, I'll say it. It looks a lot like Facebook. You can post, you can like things, see photographs and videos. But it's since it's based in Europe, there are these European Union rules like the right to privacy, the right to be forgotten. And so HumHub, we pay a monthly fee we have about 30 active members on the HumHub, and it costs like $19 a month. And they don't follow us or track us. They don't sell us to advertisers. It's totally like a private social media gig. And the members love it. And that's one of the privileges of membership in the Grays River Grange, is being part of HumHub. And then in the spring of 2020, the lockdowns came, the COVID, and that's how our Grange endured through that, as we started having meetings online. Mm-hmm. And there's a native teleconference app called Jitsi Meet, which I think Jitsa is Bulgarian for wire. It's in Croatian too. And so it's basically to meet over a wire. And so we would have Grange meetings, teleconference Grange meetings. And so the Grays River Grange was established in 1902. And here we are in 2022, well into the 21st century, and embracing the technology, continuing the tradition of Grangers being interested in technology and taking whatever tools are on the cutting edge and folding and making good use out of them.
Yeah, the Grange is a tremendous community builder.
I'm a big advocate of civic participation. And in 1979, Robert Putnam, sociologist, scientist, he published a study, and it was under the title of Bowling Alone. And it was basically about how, since World War II, how there's been less civic engagement in the United States. 100 years ago, 1 in 3 Americans participated in a civic group, and there were all kinds of elk, moose, oddfellows. There was eagles, all kinds of critters and all kinds of groups, and then it was for people who are for their values, or there were groups for Protestants, there were groups for Catholics, there was white groups and black groups, and now
and farmers.
The United States is coming together, and we're going to have groups for everybody, and it's for farmers. And so the Grays River Grange. So Putnam, and he says perhaps it was the rise of television or the way families or whatever. He doesn't really. That's sociology for you. It's a soft science. He doesn't really put his finger on like what caused this. So I'm interested in that, and so I thought, well, if I'm going to advocate this, I might as well be part of a group. So I went out into the community, and I discovered the Grays River Grange, and it was the tenants of the Grange seemed like, for my wife and I, that was the closest to shared our values. And we started attending meetings and got involved. And Love it.
That's when some of those old timers were still here.
Yeah, and that was like Carlton Appelo. And that was a real privilege, is to work with that generation of people that's been called the greatest generation. You know, these are World War II veterans. They remember the Depression. They remember the World War. They were a civic organization, very engaged in the community. And with the Grange, it was bipartisan or nonpartisan. You can't have partisanship in the Grange, which is really important now in 2022, when partisanship is rampant. And so
neutral ground is very
it's like
hard.
neutral ground. So these old timers, like, they were kind of conservative, but they were like, they just didn't seem like they were judgmental. Like, well, you know, if you believe that, so they'd come together and they'd see a problem in the community. Like, well, let's just come together and fix this problem, and then, you know, whatever these external issues are, national issues, we won't get into it.
They've always stayed real close to the legislature and watched the bills that were coming in, and they would advocate for the farmer, advocate for the ag culture. And that's one of the things they actually looked, I mean, even though it's a little small group in a little, very small area, you might think, but they were strong voices. And every time Carlton went to Washington, D.C., he had an appointment with everybody on the national level.
The State Grange building is like 2 blocks from the state legislature in Olympia, and they just sold it, but the National Grange building was 1 block from the White House. And you could go upstairs and you could look down on the White House, and that's why the rule was you cannot open a window, and you weren't allowed on the roof
Really?
of this building. Yeah. It was in the backyard of the White House. It was dedicated in 1954 by President Dwight D. Eisenhower.
And wasn't that appropriate?
It was, yeah.
I mean, there you had a World War II hero, and you had somebody who advocated for the little guy, and this old, you know, the little soldier. I mean, he met my grandmother's hero, Ike.
Yeah.
He was quite.
And he was just Republican, came out of many years of Democrats, and he was kind of a middle of the road.
Yeah. But he knew how to get the guys going. And the main thing that I always appreciate him, now that I'm older and I know about Julia Butler Hanson, she became the chair of the Western Highway System. So the I-5s and the I-90s and the I-70s, she was there along with this great room of men. And she was the chair.
Yeah, she was big into transportation.
She was big. And that's why we have passing lanes on SR4. It took her too long to get to Olympia.
In 1966, she was at the dedication of the Astoria Megler Bridge. And they were going to build these bridges to connect the islands in Puget Sound, but it was a technological challenge, and they never, engineering challenge.
Yeah,
they really pull it off.
So I know that you are very active politically too.
I'm really not into politics. I'm more into policy. Yeah, so I'm just I get in the weeds in certain things with election reform. I had an editorial in this Spokane Statesman Review yesterday on ranked choice voting and election reform.
You didn't send it to our paper?
I should have sent it.
You could still do it.
Maybe I can. It's on the AP. Maybe they'll pick it up. And so I'm into like elections and voting, campaign finance reform, and now I'm studying environmental law at Lewis and Clark College. So
you are going to be so busy.
I am also busy.
You're always learning and going to school.
I'm trying to, yeah.
And it benefits you, doesn't it?
Well, it's a good way, it's a good way to use your time, because I could tend to waste my time, right? Like, I'm not on social media. I don't have the time.
Why would you
I've
be?
got better things. That's bing. Is this bell ring? Bing. Why would you be?
Right?
Ask billions of people. Ask, why are you on social media?
Well, and it's all moving to TikTok now, and away from Facebook.
I'm really, one of the policies, I'm really into privacy and people snooping on people. You can read all about it on my Google page or Facebook.
But now tell me, how long have you owned your farm?
30 years this year.
30 years? How'd you acquire that farm?
Well, I was in the area, and we had some connections with the Wittens, Lillian and Jean Witten. And we heard about this farm for sale over in Deep River, and I went and looked. I'm like, let's do it. It was this farmhouse in pretty good shape for being empty for about 15 years at the time.
And how many acres?
At the time, it was 54 acres. But
many-
I've sprawled.
How many do you
I
have
can't
now?
even keep track.
Who needs it?
I'll call my people. No,
You call your
they do the
people.
taxes and all that stuff. No,
You'll
sorry.
get your tax. Did you get yours yesterday?
My what?
Your tax statement?
I don't know.
Your bill?
Probably.
I got mine yesterday. Mine went up about $400. That's
Oh,
not,
your property tax?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I gotta check it out.
it's bound to happen with the way things have sold for so much.
Yeah.
You know, so much
real
money.
estate is just
Things
going
are-
through the roof.
And I suspect it may go down a bit this summer, but who knows?
Yeah, in the early '90s, it was a buyer's market.
Yeah.
For sure. And that was one of the reasons I bought it. I fell in love with the area. I met George and Donna Clint.
Yeah.
Got to know
Oh,
them really
yeah.
well. Yeah.
You're good neighbors.
Yeah.
Both gone.
Yeah, both gone.
Yeah, that's our loss around here. I think I've been thinking that. Do you mind if I ask you how old you are?
56.
56. You're just the right age. That my column this week in the Eagle was about change, and quoted Bob Dylan. Come, mothers and fathers throughout the land, and don't criticize what you can't understand.
Right.
Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. The old world is rapidly aging. Either get on board or get out of the way.
These times they are changing.
Yeah, and those words have been with me for several weeks about, okay, I'm 76. It's time for me to let go. And let the young ones come in, and I'll help them when they ask, and I'll be there as a resource. But I don't want to be the one that leads the wagon train. I don't want to do that anymore.
Things are changing anyway. We're in the third decade of the 21st century, and there's a lot of challenges. And we need to know our past, and we need to know our history and see the mistakes that were made
Yeah.
and say, oh, we can't go down that road again. And that's a big part of civic participation. It's just that people are engaged in the community. They know what's going on, and they can do things like protect the environment, have public safety, and all those things.
And climate change. And,
Yeah, all those things is, and then there's kind of a balance. There should be a tension. People should also have privacy and have their own, decide how they want to live their lives. and what works for them.
without having everybody stepping in and telling you whether you're right or wrong.
Oh yeah, that's the whole thing. It's just like the mobs online too. I
Oh,
just
we
can't deal
had
with
protesters, at the high school yesterday. At
Oh,
the school in
wow.
Naysville. We had them 2 days. I don't know if they're out today. The first day was quite disruptive and chaotic and scared the little kids. So they were told by law enforcement to move across the road. It was quite, it was
I
quite,
think I know what that stuff was about.
yeah, you do.
Yeah.
And so anyway, yesterday they stayed across the road.
Well, you have the right to do that. That's a part of America. You have the freedom to get things off your chest, but you have a right to protest.
You do. They are. And anyway, it was interesting to see here in our little area and all these people over there, with their signs and all. And I just am so wondering about the old timers these days, saying to myself, wonder what they would think of this or what they would do about that.
Well, they lived through the 60s. That was a tumultuous time. And there was a lot of times they are changing. Bob Dylan,
All the
he was
way.
on the vanguard of those things.
And he's 80.
Yeah, he's 80 years old. Yeah.
That's just beyond my comprehension. I mean, I remember when he was always stoned and always, not anymore. He's learned his all the old rockers have, all the old boys, if they haven't died, they've learned about leave the drugs alone.
That's a good, I think even, yeah, that's a good, they take their toll.
They take their toll, and we lose people. Janis Joplin, it just,
Yeah, that was unnecessary.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
And it was just senseless, and there's nothing, it's cruel. There's nothing you can do about it.
there's nothing we can do about it with a lot of people. But anyway, it sounds to me like you want to get some things done on the state end. I mean, that's as well as the national end. Have you ever considered running for a legislator or legislature?
No, I'm working on a record right now.
Ah,
That's what I've been doing this week, and then I've been busy with school, and then there's work around the farm. Like there's an early spring, so I got to get over to the Grange Hall today and trim those trees. And then I've invented this I use the tractor to kind of make trimming easier to
Oh.
stand on the front, and
Yep.
I got a chipper on the back, and so it's just like
Pow.
all in one, pow, pow, and just to maximize time, I'm doing that. And then I have my potatoes.
Now,
and,
do you? Sorry to keep interrupting you. Do you have fruit trees? Like
I do,
orchard?
yeah. Yeah, I have fruit trees, like mostly apples and some cherries, pears. We had fabulous pears last year. It was such a good year. And I picked those pears when they were perfect.
And you made.
And I preserved them when like sugar water with cloves.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, and it was just really good. So we're still enjoying those. Those are just a delicacy, you know. And I had a lot of tomatoes last year. Just trying to, that's for me a luxury. Like I don't feel like I need a big private jet or a house in Beverly Hills or whatever.
But-
I need a luxury for me so I can go pick a pear and I have the vitality, the health to just go do it.
You won't have a jet, but you must have an airplane.
Yeah, I fly an old Piper Twin.
Oh,
Piper Aztec.
goodness.
Yeah, so I cruise that around. And that just saves time. I just kind of go to Seattle. I had these missions where I'd go to Southern California a lot more, and I'd go to the East Coast. But with the COVID, I just don't go anywhere. And then I go, last time I was in LA, it was a shambles, sorry to say. San Francisco too, and in Seattle, hopefully things will turn around. But so I haven't really been going a lot of places. I go to Spokane and Seattle mostly.
But I
my
know what
plane-
you're saying about your soul is centered right there on the farm.
I think so. Yeah. Again, that's just a luxury. And again, if you have health, and wow, it's really I'm really
And have a
appreciate
good
it.
wife.
Have a good wife. She's great.
Yeah,
Darby's
in
great.
land.
Have land. Yeah. She made me the shirt, by the way. She
I
sewed
knew
it.
I
You
knew
like
it.
my shirt?
The
You knew
minute I
Darby
saw,
used to
I
do it.
knew she must have done it. She's very creative.
Yeah.
Now is she still using the creamery building?
Yeah, we're in the creamery. We've been doing a lot of recording in there. That's a good place, but it's just got to got to pressure wash it this year. Another project.
Everybody has to pressure wash. Everybody.
Yeah.
There's just so much green stuff. Everywhere.
Yeah, it just grows the.
But you've lived so many different. You grew up in Aberdeen.
Yeah, I grew up in like Los Angeles in San Pedro, California,
Oh.
and then I was like 14 years old. I moved with my family to Aberdeen, Washington in 1979. And I lived in Yugoslavia for a year in 1980, 1981. I lived in Phoenix, Arizona for about 8 months in like 1986.
That didn't last any longer than 8 months.
No, and I lived right in the summertime. It just kind of like the wages weren't good,
And it wasn't green.
It wasn't green. We went back to Aberdeen. Had an apartment for $100 a month. Kind of. It was just easier to live.
Easier to live up there.
Yeah, it was easier to live, and lived in Seattle, Olympia, Tacoma, and then I bought my place in Deep River in 1992, and just really connected with it. It's just so nice.
Well, it's interesting because you've been all over the world.
Yeah, I have been all over the world. It's been a while since I've traveled like that. That was 30 years ago too, where I went to Australia. I was in Japan a couple years ago. It was wonderful. I was in China. That was very interesting.
How long did you stay?
In China, about 4 days, I think it was. We kind of were on this excursion on this trip.
Cool.
We were in Beijing and went to the Great Wall, and we went to Shanghai.
Oh, that must have
And
been.
it's so huge. The scale is phenomenal. Just so many people, so big. Yeah, it makes Seattle look like Nacelle. Shanghai does. Yeah.
But the thing that I appreciate from that situation is you'll see the most marvelously designed furniture for a little tiny space, and yet everything moves, and out comes this, and out comes that, and suddenly it's like, oh, why didn't we think of that? Just use what you have as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, resourceful.
You don't have to have a great big huge mansion on Mercer Island.
No, you don't.
It's just not if
You
you're.
got to pay property taxes.
Oh boy, do you? And then
We
you
don't have Proposition 13 like they do in California.
Oh, we don't even have.
Not that we want it,
But we also don't have even in Pacific County. It's really hard to put in a septic system. So here in Waukegan, it's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
You can design things that would be kind of off the wall. But now that we have a county engineer, that could be changing. Well, so Lewis and Clark. So you used to go to LCC, right?
I went to LCC. So my nephew, he was starting community college. It was 2010. and then the car was warming up, and then he was going to make the drive from Deep River to Longview, and I just jumped in the car with him, and I went, and I signed up with him. It was like the best stupid idea I've ever made.
Well, that wasn't...
One of the best.
Education's never a stupid idea.
No. And I tested reading 98, writing 98, and math 54. So I started this bonehead math class, and I worked my way up into college math. And then I got a lot of required things that I didn't get any college credit for out of the way. It's been so long because I graduated from high school. It was supposed to be 1983, but I graduated in 84 because I never got that year that I lived in Croatia, Yugoslavia. It never counted for anything, so I got held back a year. And so I got some, anyway, I went to LCC, and I really liked it. It's a great school. And I was driving home, and there was this billboard that said, "Earn your degree in your pajamas, Washington State University." I'm like, what's this? Online university. So it was that spring, and then we were out for the summer. I applied, I got accepted, and I just started studying online.
How does that compare for you with having been in a classroom?
It works for me because I'm motivated, and so I didn't have to drive 2 hours a day. And I had some incidents in school just being, notorious, but most people just left me alone. And I'm walking down the hall and like, look at these kids.
They're so young.
They're so young, yeah. So and I guess I was so old, right? Works the other way. I was a non-traditional student. But I started
You've always been a non-traditional student.
I've always been non-traditional.
Yeah.
And then I went to, so then I went on tour, and I won a Grammy and did things, but I kept on studying. So I stuck with it. I went half-time or three-quarters time. And in 2016, I got my degree, Bachelor's of Arts in Social Sciences.
And now what you working for at Lewis and Clark?
And Master's of Legal Studies, which is like a mini master's.
And is it taking you towards law?
You can't study law. I mean, you can't practice law.
Right, but
I wouldn't want to practice law anyway, but it's just, you learn a lot. I studied ocean law the last term, Magnuson-Stevens Act, Dolphin Safe, Tuna, Coastal Zone Management Act. And right now we're studying environmental justice in legal research. So. And
that pulls you right into this area because this is a prime area for environmental concerns.
And, we're getting there's a proposal to get new tide gates.
Yes.
In Deep River, and we need them badly because the old ones are collapsing.
Those are scheduled to come in.
Okay, they're coming in.
Now, there's a meeting that Dan Cothran sponsors called Conservation and Restoration Group, and it's all agencies. And
that was last Wednesday.
Yes.
But I didn't go. I was invited to go.
Well, the next one will be, I believe, sometime in April or May.
They're quarterly, yeah.
Anyway, that's a meeting you would really enjoy because that's where I heard things are in the bucket. They're just not tomorrow. They're like 23, 24.
Yeah, they have like the instruments, and they're measuring, and they still need to get the grants, and things are moving forward.
They'll get it. They'll get it.
I hope so.
They will. That's the Salmon Recovery Board.
And there's we have cows in Deep River, and they're not hurting a thing. It's like we had salmon coming up those ditches and into the creeks, and they're getting past those old tide gates. And
the beavers are right there watching.
There's some beavers out there, yeah.
Beavers are good in
I
my world.
I think so, yeah. I think there's balance too. Like if they're on your property, you can deal with them. But there's some places where we should leave them be and do their thing. So there's a balance, right?
So you and Mr. Nicola, further down the valley, he doesn't particularly care for them. But you get Bob Pyle in the conversation, and he's very much pro beavers, of course.
Darby's pro beaver. She watched this documentary called "Leave It to Beavers," and then she was sold on it. And it was like a wildlife documentary.
They're so smart.
Yeah.
It seems to me that in many ways we humans are a little leery of smart animals. There's that dinosaur age coming back someday.
The dinosaurs are going to come back. Maybe. There's a lot of dinosaurs out there.
Well, but I think we all admire you because you've shown us who you are. You're not the guy on the album
cover.
You'll
never know.
I know, you'll never know, for sure. But do you still have goats?
Yes, I have 4 goats at the moment. Like a fool, I do these rescues. There were those goats that were up the road. They were living in Eva's house.
Oh, yeah.
Those 2 black goats. Well, one vanished. I don't even want to ask what happened to that poor thing. And it's just like, so that I was driving at night, and there were the goats were in the middle of the road. And I'm like, oh man, I almost hit him. Well, the way I am, I went and knocked on the guy's door. I said, hey, you got to watch these goats. I almost hit these goats. He goes, you can have them. I'm like, okay, got a rope. And I walked them home.
You walked him home.
Yeah. Or there was the horse up there on SR4 in this filthy stall. I went and knocked on the door, and I started screaming at the people, you can't have this animal like this, and blah, blah, blah. I don't care. Oh, hurt my feelings. Call me whatever name you want. Like, I care what you think. You animal abuser. She wouldn't give it up. Anyway, the horse, it sounded like a happy ending because I kept on it. She wouldn't give it up. And she shouldn't have had an animal.
Pacific County is always looking for places for horses to go.
Oh, and I have a horse, a rescue horse. I have 2 rescue donkeys that I'm trying to work with. And then I have a Juarizo, which wasn't a rescue. You know what a Juarizo is?
No.
Its father is a llama and the mother's an alpaca.
Oh my God.
It can happen. They're genetically that close. And you can actually, camels and alpacas and Juarizos
Are all the same?
and vicuñas, they had a common ancestor.
Really?
They had this giant super llama like 15,000 years ago here in North America that was like 20 feet tall. That was their ancestor. Then they just kind of like branched off from there. That's my, yeah.
You are so fun. I'm so glad we have you.
Well, thank you.
I mean, I'd be very, very... it's fine if you want to travel and do big things. I don't care, but you got to come home. We want
I got nowhere to go.
Well,
where am I going to go?
It's like the Grange. Now, you qualify to be on the board for the what has been called the whatever.
Oh, the Daiking District. Yeah, so I said yes to that. And I found someone else to help too.
Who?
I'm not going to announce it on TV.
Oh, okay.
But you'll know. And so we were supposed to have our meeting the other day, and that's why I got paranoid about this with the COVID. It was so close, and like I got vaccinated, and I'm like, well, yeah, I went to this parties over the summer, and like, well, yeah, finally this thing's getting behind us, and then it seemed like it came back. And I know people who are vaccinated, and they had like COVID twice and got sick,
but they didn't die.
They didn't die, yeah. And then the individual who I was working on the transition from got COVID. So he called me and said he had a cold. He had his sniffles and whatever. I go, did you get COVID tested? He goes, oh, I don't want to deal with that. So I know somebody who had it. I actually bought a couple yesterday, but I knew someone who had a COVID test, and I put it in his mailbox, and then he checked it out, and he had COVID. So, like, you got to know if you have this stuff. So that's why, like, when I showed up here, I'm like, my parents are in their 80s, you know, like, I'll probably be okay if I have COVID, but I live in a multi-generational household, right?
Yeah, is your mom living with you, or
No, my father and my stepmother, and I think if they got it, they would have a pretty rough time with it. So that's why I'm kind of like, well, you know, if you don't want to wear a mask, if you don't want to get vaccinated, I was hanging out with somebody who doesn't want to get vaccinated. That's fine. If you don't want to get, you're going to get sick. You're going to get sick. Like, just the way it is, you know.
I hear about people working in the hospitals who say, I don't want to let people take over the emergency room who haven't had vaccine. I want to work with the people who've tried. And I think, well, I could kind of understand that. Understand.
Yeah, I guess hopefully it'll just kind of work its way out. Work its way through the population, and then we'll go into the endemic mode of it.
Well, I've been, honestly, I don't mind announcing this on TV. I would be happy to be the third board member on what I call the flood control district.
Okay.
We started out called...
Well, it's not up to me.
I know, but just so you have the knowledge that I haven't told Paul yet. I've been thinking about it a lot because when we go to this conservation meeting, I represent...
The plan is to have a good... to just get started and have a good Japanese knotweed eradication program.
Oh, yeah. Well,
that's a good start.
That would be a huge start.
Just how to do it. And that might be a good project for the summer, and we just kind of ease into it.
And there are grants available for kids to work on Japanese knotweed in the summer.
There you go.
It just has to be the right...
We can get grants, there's resources.
There are resources out there, and we could have had... For instance, we haven't had any projects on the Grays other than from the Cowlitz tribe. they're doing a lot of work on the Grays,
Wow, yeah, they have.
but not on our lower part. I am so glad you came and gave us some of your time.
Thanks, Karen.
I think you're one of those people that I personally treasure, and I'm so glad you're working with the Grange. That's wonderful. I feel.
So am I.
I feel it's like, as I said, the older generation needs to do a little bit less and roll more over to your age.
There's
take
something funny about the Grange where, like, they say one becomes a Granger. You're just not a member, and you just kind of like. And I got really drawn into the tradition and the ritual ceremony things.
I love the rituals.
It's so kind, and it's really nice.
Oh, and it's like going to a really wonderful prayer meeting.
Yeah, it's
in
really
some
nice.
ways, you're just honoring each other, and
Yeah.
God be with you till we meet again.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, I mean, that's what a great universal language.
Yeah,
We don't have many of those places right now.
symbols are powerful.
Symbols are powerful. Isn't that the truth? Well, everything in the Archive Center in its own way is a symbol. This little room right here behind you is a whole little house, a little camp house behind
I
this
see
wall,
that.
and you can see the stove, and you can
Oh, I see the hand split cedar.
Mm-hmm.
We've been salvaging cedar. We've been finding these logs, and Robert's been hand splitting cedar. I made these gates in front of my house. You got to see my new gate.
Well, cedar's a precious
It
gift
is,
nowadays.
and there's so
for
much
sure.
of it. Like just the old timers left it behind. It
They
looks like
did.
a rotten log, and it's not.
Yeah, it'll be around for a long
And then we
time.
made these pickets out of old cedar posts. Yeah,
You're
just
a good
resourceful.
restorer.
Yeah, try to
Yeah,
be resourceful.
you're a good man, Chris.
Oh,
I thank you so
Well, thank
much
you.
for coming today. I really, really appreciate it, and smile for the audience. And thank you, all you viewers, for joining us today. It's so good to sit down with friends, and that's what the point of Take a Break with Karen is about, to get to know your neighbors a little bit better. So I wish all of you a good evening, and thank you for watching. Be with us the next time.